Greetings, old school magic players, and welcome to the Four Horsemen.
Greetings, old school magic players. Welcome to a Monday night with the Four Horsemen. I'm the Chadster. I'm joined here tonight with Peter Soltez. Peter, how's it going?
Oh, it's going very well, Chad. I'm excited to be here, actually.
Yeah, well, this was your idea, right?
Was it? No, yeah. That was a few years ago. I guess it was my idea, if you insist.
Yeah. So we're going to be doing a kind of unique and special episode of the Four Horsemen tonight.
We've never done this before. Never have.
Yeah, you're right. We've never done this before, and this
predictions.
This was Peter's idea. Oops, I need to go back to my first slide. 1 second. So this was Peter's idea to basically.
Unless it turns out to be a bad idea, then it was Chad's idea.
If it was a bad idea, it's my idea. Also, this was Peter's idea to basically do kind of a Tournament 11 top 8 deck review, discussion, debate. We're going to do some predictions on who we think might, make it to semifinals and finals. It should be a lot of fun. We're also going to be joined by Parker Boab. Peter and I were just on earlier doing another video covering Parker's Winter Derby top 16 match versus John, who was playing the mono green weenie unpowered deck, unpowered with a Lotus, but nothing else, and that was a really cool match. Parker is going to be joining in just a moment. So while we're waiting for Parker, let's talk about the tournament. So this tournament had the most prizes of any of our tournaments basically since tournament number 1. We gave away these really cool Arabian Nights islands that John Eckleberry and I worked on, and John had these printed up at his own expense and is mailing them out to all the 30 some odd participants in tournament number 11. And
I got mine. They're in my deck now.
Yes, they're really cool. And John also offered up this, in the lower left-hand corner, the Arabian Poker Nights Ken Meyer Jr. playmat. And we always give away a, unless Peter wins, we always give away...
I've not collected a repeat trophy.
Well, actually, you have a big stack of these things to help distribute to our Canadian players, but we anticipate we're going to have winners all over the world, Canada, North America, over in Europe. So I've sent some mats to Peter to help distribute to our Canadian winners.
Can I start with my first prediction?
Well, yes, you can.
The first prediction is that in this tournament number 11, which part of the reason we're doing this is because I find like I myself and so many other people have been tuning into each other's matches and watching it. Like there's a following like amongst ourselves, and I find people are enjoying these games and the decks and just the good old school times and vibes that people are sharing with each other. But my prediction is that a new champion will be crowned.
Yes.
In this one, it will not be. I will not be making I don't think I'll make a successful title defense.
Interesting. Okay, that's an interesting prediction.
Just so you know, what's an easy one to make too, because there's just so many new players, strong decks out there, and I figured I would go spicy this time. Go figure 3 Living Plains decks in the final into the playoffs.
Yeah,
unbelievable. All 3 of them made it in fact.
Well, everybody's figured out how freaking unbelievably good Living Plains is. So great prizes. I'm also giving away the Guardian Beast, Purple Moonlight, Ken Meyer Jr. signed limited edition playmats. We have about, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 of these left to give out as prizes, and then these things are going to be gone. And we only printed 100 of them, so in the original artwork, there only be the one, and we are gonna potentially make some more available that have the Four Horsemen coming out of the trees as a second edition, but they, they're not going to have the stitch edges. They don't have the Ken Meyer Jr. signature, and they're not numbered and all that. So the first 100 of these are truly unique, and those are prizes that we've been giving out since Tournament 1. So if you're new to Four Horsemen, or you've been kind of hearing about us and you want to check us out, visit fourhorsemenmagic.com. And we're on Facebook at facebook.com/groups/fourhorsemenmtg. So this tournament 11.
Yo, guy, congratulations.
Did he make it? Oh, did Parker just join?
Yeah.
All right. Let me switch over to the share then. Hey, Parker.
Sorry, I was on a work call.
Oh, working. You're working and working late, eh?
Yeah. Don't patronize Peter.
Yeah, I know. Don't. Thank you, eh? I appreciate that.
All right. Well,
Gotcha.
we were just getting into this here. Let me go back and reshare for us. I've got some graphics.
What is this again? Oh, this is looking at the decks.
Yeah, we're gonna be checking out the Four Horsemen kind of top 8 deck pictures. And
looking at deck picks.
yes, deck picks. So let me just reshare
I
here.
can never
with you
explain
guys.
this to my wife either, what I'm doing right now.
Yeah. You're on a 3-way looking at deck picks.
It sounds pretty bad, I know. Okay, so we were just doing a quick recap of the tournament, and we were about to get into the deck pictures. So you joined right on time.
Pictures and predictions.
Yes, pictures, predictions, commentary, whatever.
Sure.
This tournament is running through February 10th, so we're in the last 2-week stretch. We were able to wrap up. We were only 1 day late, which was really pretty good, and that was because a couple of our players were at GloryCon, and they're like, "Hey, we're at GloryCon. Can we play on Sunday night?" So we did a really cool Sunday night match, and we'll talk about that deck here. That's Chris's deck. We'll be doing the quarterfinals basically through February 3rd, and then the semifinals and finals will be the week after, wrapping up on the 10th. Okay, so this is small print. I have a zoom in for us, but we had 33 players in this tournament. This is the top 23 or 24. And there were so many players, so many cool decks. This was the largest attendance we've had since Brian Weissman played in Tournament 5. And it was, I think, the 3rd largest attendance that we've had since Tournament 2, I think. So we've really, really picked up a lot of momentum. This was also the first time we've had, I think we had 10 European players register. We had a couple drop, but we ended up with 8 European players. UK European players playing all their matches, and Terry Philip Hutchings out of the UK is undefeated and went to the finals. Let's zoom in on the brackets here real quickly. So, let me do this first. So the top 8 are Nick Breyer, Damian Burzum, Mike Clements, Christopher Zach, Terry Philip Hutchins, Peter Soltesz. And then William Kuhn also won his bracket. He was in one of the European groups, but he was 2-1, whereas the other 6 players were 3-0. So Nick, Damian, Mike, Chris, Terry, and Peter were all 3-0. William was 2-1. So what we ended up having to do was we had some ties. I was 2-1. Roger was 2-1. John, Sean, and Max were all 2-1. But in terms of the OMW percentage and the game winning percentage, Roger, John, and myself were all, and Sean were all identically tied. So ultimately, what we had to do was, we ultimately go to the 3rd percentage, the OGW percentage, when there is a tie, and it was a 3-way tie between me, Roger, and John. So what we had to do, and Teleria prompted this, is we had to do kind of a round 1 playoffs before we could get to the quarterfinals. And Roger had to play John, and I had to play William. and we'll talk about that kind of round one playoff results. But this is how the brackets laid out, and we just needed to figure out for the 7th and 8th top 8 spots who was it going to be. So this is how it played out today. I played William over my lunch break, and he clobbered me 2-0. And John played Roger tonight, and John won 2-0. So John proceeded to quarterfinals, and William proceeded to quarterfinals. And so these are the top 8 decks that we're going to review today. Guys, any comments before we jump into the decks?
Good summary.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay, so first off, Nick Breyer versus John Eckleberry. Nick's a co-founder for Four Horsemen, and John's played in every tournament since tournament number 1. Let's start with Nick Breyer's deck. Mono Blue Flyers Control. Very reminiscent of early deck builds. He's got a few proxies, 4 Ghost Ship, and 2 Time Elementals. Guys, what do you think of this Mono Blue Flyers build?
Needs to be running Sunken City.
The Sunken City, yeah. That was something that only you have done so far, Parker.
Number 2, where's his sideboard?
I don't know where his sideboard is. He pinged me today, and he said he realized he forgot to put his sideboard in his picture, and he was going to send me another picture, but he hasn't sent it yet. So
Likely story.
yeah.
Well, I have for your alleged amusements Nick's sideboard. He sent it to me.
Oh, he sent it to you, but not to me. That's great.
Well,
Well,
he didn't really. He just wrote it here. He says, "I've been playing with 3 energy flux, 4 flash floods, 2 acid raids, 3 flash counters, and 3 enchantment alterations." That's what he wants to deal with.
Enchantment alterations.
yeah, so you can move people's unstable mutations onto your creatures.
I would think that you would.
Yeah.
I guess that doesn't sound very good.
Well,
Like you have to really be expecting.
Parker hit it on the. I agree with you, man.
Like
Marginal. I move your spirit link. Okay, but it remains my spirit link all the same.
yeah, like I was thinking like maybe if you wanted to like move a used up unstable onto another creature, but the way the counters work, it's actually not good because then your creature still dies.
Because
And then you're still like pumping their creature. None of that sounds good. I guess if people are really playing the demonic torment or like gaseous form or whatever, like maybe put it back onto their shit. But I feel like if you're running those cards, it's because you're not running creatures. So you're basically just like moving it around on your own shit.
Yeah.
I mean, commendable for playing the card, but that sounds just goddamn terrible.
I don't think I don't think it's going to field in there a lot and be useful for him. I'm looking over the rest of this sideboard here, and let's go like this. Okay, so 4 flash floods. I'm not sure he's got. It looks like 18 basic islands. He must be worried about a red card. Maybe it's Rook Egg, but he's already got the boomerangs there to deal with that. And I feel like a better sideboard choice for him might have been like a Tano's Coffin or something like that.
Wait, no. The Flash Flood doesn't help against Rook Egg because it only kills it, and you don't want to kill it.
well,
So, I mean,
it kills the token.
kill
It kills the token.
Sorry, the Rook token.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hey, but
then
you just
Boomerang
yeah, boomerang's also great for it.
and Time Elemental.
Yeah, and Time Elemental.
So, yeah, it doesn't really lock down anything. I can't see a super big red threat that.
Yeah, it's
really
not
makes it
against.
seem a problem.
It's not
But-
Blood Moon.
But hey, to your point though, Peter, check out the land count. If that's only 18 islands plus a strip mine and a maze, that's 20 islands total. That is like extremely thin.
What do you mean 20? He's only actually got 19 lands.
Yeah, that's what I meant. He's got 20 lands total, 19 that taps for mana. Like that is setting yourself up for a major mana screw right there.
Especially with Ghost Ship. Like, Ghost Ship and, like, Azure Drake being at the top of your curve. Well,
Yeah.
fuck, never mind. Tetravis and down at the end. I forgot about that.
Yeah, I mean Tetris and Time Elemental.
Well, Okay, so you can at least mana drain into the Tetravis, but
Yeah,
like,
if you
the
have
ghost
2
ship is
blue.
a lot harder.
You know, like I think he's going to run into that's the number one consistent thing I've seen is, you know, people are used to playing in Swedish and Atlantic and whatnot, and they're used to having Soul Ring and all the mocks and all this ramp, and you know, you basically got the Dark Elves and the Fellwar Stones, and that's about it other than mana drain. So I predict right now. Here's my prediction. I think Nick Breyer is going to run into Mana Screw in his matches versus John.
Yeah. What's his card count in his deck there? I'm just trying to make it. I counted it twice and I got different numbers both times, but I'm looking at that 1, 2.
I'd hope 60.
Well, he's got piles of 3, piles of 2.
Yeah. So I'm going. You got 36. He's got 6 piles of 4, 24, 26. Is it 60 cards he has, or does he actually have 59 cards? That's what I'm trying to figure out here.
8, 12.
Am I crazy? 59 or
16, 19, 21, 22, 23. 6.
I think he's good. I think he's got 60 cards. I counted it one more time.
Okay.
Well,
I would have expected somebody to register a 59 card deck. And
I wouldn't, but you know what? By accident, somebody registered a deck with 4 Mishra's Factories.
yeah,
Well, yeah,
that was Roger.
Yeah, things happen.
That was
Things
Roger.
happen.
Well, okay, so
So I just feel like Nick didn't put a lot of thought into his side. I'm going to be blunt. I don't think Nick put a ton of thought into his sideboard. I think he was rushed probably to make a deck, and I think the sideboard shows that he doesn't have really answers to problems he might face.
yeah. Well, and here's the thing: it takes time to review the deck pictures, and you know we just published these last night, so the references that people have are the prior tournaments. And tournament number 9, I posted all the deck picks for that, and of course they're all available on the Four Horsemen website at fourhorsemenmagic.com. But you have to take the time to review them. You have to study them. You know, Peter, you've been very disciplined and regimented about this and putting a lot of thought into it. Other folks, families, job, you know, all the personal time demands, they may not have the time to do this, you know, and really, really figure what do they think they're going to come up against.
Yes. All right. I'm also, so it's interesting. We're going to compare this to John's list. John's
Yeah,
running
yeah.
a lot of
Yeah.
cards. Nick has elected not to go with the unstable, which probably be the classic. He's gone with the Force Spike instead.
Yeah, that's interesting, right? No, and he's
So
banking
much
on others running unstable, and if they are, he's going to pop in those enchantment alterations, and he can grab them and put them on his Zephyr Falcons and Flying Men.
But what's the casting cost of enchantment alteration? Is it
1 blue?
or is it kind of? It's only 1 blue. The
Yeah.
enchantment alteration.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's see how that plays. That'll be interesting to see. 1 blue.
The time elementals are the only thing that's maybe like slightly unusual, and I'm really interested in why he would run Tetravis over Triskelion. I have found Triskelion to be far superior to Tetravis in every way, and if I had the choice of running 4 Triskelion or 4 Tetravis, I'd take Triskelion all day.
Then it wouldn't be mono blue flyers.
There you go. Is the name.
Well, okay, here's the thing. Nobody tells me their deck names. I just pick names that seem appropriate.
Well, then it would have been a lie if you had Triskelion.
Yeah, I'd have to change the deck name. Well, oh, wait a minute. Time Elemental doesn't fly. Ha ha.
Doesn't it?
No, it
I
doesn't.
guess not.
It's a 0/2 ground creature.
But the misprint of it with Sarah Angel does fly.
That's right. It sure does. You got it.
Flies everywhere, man.
So I want to give a shout out to John. John and I think Peter, you guys' deck pictures are always the best deck pictures.
Fuck you.
Okay, you too,
I'm right
Peter.
here.
You too, Parker. John's deck pictures.
You know what? I really appreciate the way that 20 I slipped in your pocket came back right now. I appreciate that, Chad. That was
Sure.
you do to me. You said me to do me right, and you did.
Yeah. Well, you know, John has always had great deck pictures, and I love that he puts, which tournament is. He puts his signature on there, And I always try and lay my cards out in 4-ofs, but when you do it this way, it makes it very, very neat, and you could tell John's attention to detail there.
Hmm.
Did any of you guys play any practice matches with John before the tournament?
Negative.
No.
Okay. I played several with him, and I found this deck very hard to beat. Parker, this is right down your alley, so why don't you start us off with comments on John's deck?
It's almost my deck.
It's a good comment. It's almost mine.
Yeah, it was like,
Did
yeah,
he see your deck? Y'all didn't play each other.
I don't think so.
Yeah. How do you think he winded up like in almost the exact same deck build
Yeah,
as you?
this is. I mean, if you throw 4 Dan in the sideboard, then it's like a deck that I would play all day and twice on Sunday. I don't know, because it's good.
Yeah.
Gosbin Ogre is a fucking house, especially in this format where you don't have to worry about lightning bolts and chain lightning. It's just chain lightning.
Yep.
And why do you think that's just now coming out? Because we're like on tournament 11.
Not just now. People have been tempting the ogre like since the beginning.
Really?
I've been playing it. I feel like forever. I've been trying to make it work. It curves great, and you have to be sort of all in on aggro, and it's I don't know, because it's not played in other formats. If you think about most of the cards that you've been seeing, I'd probably say in most of the tournaments, it's basically just like an Atlantic deck minus like power, because it's, or like minus the restricted cards, because those are all in like the ABU. And so like maybe now it's getting more into, okay, let's brew within the actual confines and look at cards that might not be good in other sets or in other formats.
Mhm.
But Gosbin Ogre is fucking sick. Like I used to play it in Vintage, like in my Stompy decks, because it was like, you know, that in Jungle Lion and Scrib Sprite, where you're like turn 1 beat sticks.
I think Gosban's stronger now because of the restriction and mistress factor. You can't, it's been elevated. You can't say otherwise. It's certainly better because it's not going to run into a land that can become a 3/3 on defense.
That's true.
Yeah.
I actually, I'll plead ignorance to NAF's ASP. I don't know what it does besides, it's like poison counters, right?
No, it's actually really amazing. So what it does is it damages you, and if you don't pay, I think it's a mana.
Oh, it doesn't.
It does an extra damage. Yeah, it's like the Savannah, the green Savannah lion, sort of like the.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
right.
I dig it.
I remember this. I think I've played against this in Chandelar. Actually, is I think the only time I've seen it in play.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. And then is it every turn after that, or just on the turn after it damages you?
I think it's only that initial turn. I'd have to like look it up again, but I've looked at the card before, and I think it's only the initial damage that one time. So but you know, obviously if it keeps hitting you, it can recur.
Yeah, it's like a one-sided electric eel.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, that's cool. Scavenger Folk. Honestly, I don't know how sold I am on Zephyr Falcon.
I'm not either. I'm not sold on the 2 Pendelhaven, given how many 1/1s he decided to go up. I feel like 3 is the right number in this deck.
True.
I think I think you can cut another force and put 1 more Pendelhaven. And I think Zephyr Falcon's a really marginal card. It's just not as fast as Flying Men. It doesn't do anything more special.
Well, what would you put in instead of
Earn them?
Yeah.
Earn them. Just earn them right away.
Yeah, so you complete your curve up to 4.
Yeah. He doesn't have that curve there, and he only got the dibs, which is pretty good, but they can get shut down with a Spirit Link or a Maze in the way that earn them won't hurt you every single turn.
Yeah. I would agree with you on the 3 Pendelhaven, especially considering that you only have basically 2 Sylvan as your card selection or card draw.
Right.
That you want to get it, but you don't want to be flooded with it. Obviously, legendary. So 3, I think, is the right number.
Yep.
It's similar to the Zephyr Falcon Waiuli Wolf, even though I did just play against it in Derby.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I believe in this card.
The Waiuli Wolf or the Zephyr Falcon?
Waiuli Wolf. Well, both.
So I played a deck with the Waiuli Wolf, and it was really strong. I played it with 2 cards. I'm trying to think back to this deck. It was a Rook Egg Reincarnation deck that I was playing, and the Wolf was so strong with Old Man of the Sea.
Oh yeah, because you could pump something and steal.
I could pump and steal and sacrifice. It was so strong there against like low to the ground aggro decks. I just was stealing everything, and then also stealing Stern Dibs with the Old Man. And it was also good. Sometimes people would attack with like a bunch of creatures, and they wouldn't really think that like that 2-power creature was going to kill my Rook Egg, and then I would pump their creature and make a Rook token. But here he doesn't really have that. He's just making his own creatures a little bit tougher. But you know, there's not enough. It's still a solid card, but I don't think it synergizes in his deck enough yet.
Yeah. I mean, it's there are obviously very few combat tricks sort of available, but as far as like your 1/1s, I guess he has 16. So I guess that does make it a little bit as far as like, you know, Pendlehaven and Waiuli Wolf being the combat tricks.
What is this deck trying to do? So is that his sideboard cards at the bottom, the Boomerang, the Flash Manager? So I think he's trying to pivot because, you know, like it's kind of really annoying to deal with mana drain, 4 of them. So he's trying to basically get ahead of anybody who's playing blue and mana drains and make it so that they have to play and they can't just sit back and wait. And then second game, his strategy seems, my assumption is that he's going to side out the Falcons and put in the mana drains to reinforce that strategy. They hadn't seen it from him before, but he'll probably play with all the creatures and the mana drains. So he'll be ahead, and then he'll be the one sitting back to wait. I think that's his plan here, if I'm guessing right.
This is a deck where I think actually the force spikes work better in his rather than the opponent's.
Yeah.
Or not to keep bringing up my pet decks of like bringing in Tangle Kelp or like telekinesis or something, because you are like constantly just turning big dumb idiots sideways. That as much as you can, like, you don't want to play the control deck, you just want to keep them from blocking.
Ideally, yeah, so you can keep hitting your damage home and finish them, hopefully.
Yeah, and so like you want as much like 1 mana interaction, so it doesn't actually like, oh, do I hold up mana drain? It's like, why? So I can like dump a Serendib on turn 3 after countering something on turn 2, which I could have done anyway after hitting my land drops.
Yeah, I would like telekinesis in here, like you said.
Yeah, something to like just tap some creatures down for 2 turns and like
throw an unstable on, just hammer the last damage home or something like that.
Well, so okay, so that's a really good overview of John's Gasman aggro deck. You know,
we say Gazbangro now, or Gazbangro?
Gazbang aggro. Yeah.
Aggro?
Yeah.
This is just Zoo, right?
Yeah, it's just Zoo. Yeah.
Small guy Zoo. It's all small Zoo.
Sly. It's like blue-green Sly.
There's no bolt. It doesn't have any bolts though.
Yeah.
Right, no bolts.
But Gosbin is basically just like the green color pie of Jackal Pup.
All right, so let's check out the next set of decks.
Wait, do we want to decide how those decks are going to fare?
Oh yeah. Okay, so let's do predictions. All right, so
okay, go to Nick's. Go back to Nick's.
You know, Nick Breyer's mono blue flyers with the time elementals. You know, time elemental, if you get them in play and they don't have bolt or the chain or Triskelion or whatever, they can be extremely powerful. I would say that's probably his main mid to late game lock strategy. He'll have tons of mana, and he can keep popping shit back with those time elementals. That could be brutal.
All right, who takes game 1, gentlemen? Who's going to take game 1?
Well, I'll stick to my earlier prediction. I predict with only 19 lands a tap for mana. Nick is going to come up really short on mana, and I think he'll be mana starved. Meanwhile, I think John will be dropping a little, 1/1 or 2/2 or 2/1 every turn until he gets to turn 3 and drops his Serendib. So it's just going to be speed, and he won't be able to keep up. Now, if he has an early Force Spike, an early Remove Soul, an early Boomerang, or early Mana Drain, any of those, and he's got what, 3 Remove Souls, 3 Force Spikes. So if he has early of those in his hand, he might be able to hold on. And if he gets Maze of Ith or Azure Drake or Ghost Ship, then he might be able to stabilize. But I think he's going to be hard pressed. What do you guys think? You still there?
Oh man.
Oh, did I lose you guys for a little bit?
Yeah.
You're
Oh,
back.
sorry. Yeah, I just see here on OBS we dropped a couple of packets. Yeah, I think he's going to get overrun by John, and I think it's going to be real hard for him to get
You're
mana.
saying game 1 or match?
Well, game 1, I predict Nick will lose. Sideboard, I don't think he... What does he have? He's going to drop Acid Rain, maybe? Put Acid Rain in?
Acid Rain might actually be okay for him, but it doesn't really matter that much against John's deck. He doesn't have any. I don't think he has any double green requirements.
Even if he drops Acid Rain, he's got Pendlehavens and City of Brass. It won't stop the green mana.
Also, turn 4.
Yeah, he's already behind and dead at that point.
Mm-hmm.
The only way that I think Nick stabilizes or gets on top is if he's able to mana drain something early and get an early Tetravis and protect it.
Or Ghost Ship. The Ghost Ship and the regenerating might be his savior.
But Ghost Ship costs 4, and then you have to pay 3 to regenerate it. At 2/4, it's gonna bounce with the Serendibs, but I don't know. It's super mana intensive if you want to start actually using it.
So we're all predicting Nick to win, or sorry, John to win 2-0.
I think John takes it 2-0.
Yeah, that's what I think.
I'd go with that.
I go with that. Yeah, I think John's like you said. John's gonna just start laying out creatures every single turn. Nick might unstable something, but the problem is he doesn't have that. He doesn't have that high creature total, and he has kind of like a lack of lands.
Mm-hmm.
If he gets really lucky and he just hits his land drop every single turn, he has good cards to play out, and he can sit back and mana drain and dump Drakes onto the board. That actually the Drakes answer all. That's the other thing. His Azure Drake. If you look at John's deck, his Azure Drake answers every card that John has.
Yeah.
He needs multiple Wailuli Wolves.
No, one Wailuli Wolf on a Serendib kind of goes over the top.
That would be 4/5, yeah. Or unstable mutation on something and keeping it pumped.
Yeah. So
I just think John's going to be so fast because I played John and just like I played Parker in several decks. Parker had me dead on turn 4 like a lot of games. So if you're dead on turn 4,
John's going to be the aggressor and Nick's going to have to defend. The problem with Nick's deck is he doesn't have removal.
Yeah, there's no removal here. That's why I think Triskelion is superior.
Yeah, it does offer removal, so I think that's the problem. That's his biggest problem. His best removal is like Boomerang, and then that's just a temporary fix, really.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I mean, I'll say one last thing. If you're playing 18 islands, there's no fucking reason to not play Dan Dan.
Yeah. Also, yeah, Dan Dan's good.
It's like, come on, just play the card.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Live the dream.
Live the Dan Dan dream. All right, so I think we're all in agreement there. The next match is really interesting. Christopher Zach.
Really interesting, by the way. The seed number 1 getting knocked out by seed number 9, squeaking in there.
Well, yeah.
Shit.
Yeah, I mean, John's deck, I predicted this, and that's another reason why I was like, we need to play these playoffs. We can't be giving, people free buys to just get, lower index because they're just going to get swept anyways. But let's move on to the next match. Christopher Zach is new to Four Horsemen, and this is his first tournament. He was actually at GloryCon, and we postponed the tournament wrap up for a day or so he could get this match in. He was he was 2-0 and 2-1, I think, in his brackets, and so he had a chance to win his bracket, and he did win. And so him and Terry are facing off in the second quarterfinal brackets. Let's take a look at their decks. This is what I called Mono Black Witch's Hellfire. This deck is... Nobody has done a Mono Black deck in all the history of Four Horsemen, so this deck is truly like a turning point. What do you guys think?
I think I'm going to go easy on Christopher because it's his first tournament. I'm not going to rip him a new one like we did on Nick and Joe.
Yeah.
Nick, what could be better? No, honestly, I'm excited to see a mono black deck going to the top 8.
Yeah, he did tell me, just as a quick note before we kind of get into this, it was confusing as to what was his sideboard. He was running a deck in GloryCon, and he told me he needed his Ashes to Ashes for his GloryCon deck, and he took them out and put them in his other deck and forgot to include them in the deck picture. So I think the cards up above, there's 8 cards up there. I think he's supposed to have some Ashes to Ashes and something else to finish out the sideboard.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. I mean,
It's more oubliette.
He needs more oubliette. Yeah, I was gonna say Barter, right? He needs more oubliette, and 2 Hellfires could leave for like those oubliette.
That's probably the other 3 cards that he's missing. It's probably 2 Ashes to Ashes, 3 oubliettes.
That'd be perfect.
Something like that. But let's just kind of go through this. I mean, he's running Word of Binding, which is that card is a finisher if you can get it in the right moment. The Urg Raiders, powerhouse early on. Hell's Caretaker. I was experimenting with this guy using Rook Egg, Hell's Caretaker, and Diamond Valley for that trio of a combo. The Phyrexian Gremlins, the Hazran Ogress.
I was gonna say the Ogress. I mean, my OCD wants to be triggered by not having those 2 because it's in 2 different spots on
I know.
Yeah, there are 4.
Right.
Yeah, there's Hellfire spread around, and there's other cards spread around, but yeah, there's 4 Ogress, and there's 3 Hellfire. The Kumbaj Witch is also... You don't like that art, Parker?
Are you kidding me?
It doesn't do it for you? Come on.
Yeah, but I support Urg Raiders is one of my favorite cards of all time. The Kumbaj or Quambaj Witches,
Yes.
love that.
Yes.
The Ifrit over here, I think could be maybe a couple more.
It's tough because it's got that 2 black upkeep.
It's got the upkeep. I would maybe at least go 2.
You say upkeep, I say yuck.
I think he put that one in because it's signed by Christopher Rush.
Well, it's like 2 for a 3/2 flyer.
3/3.
It's
I think, is it not?
3/3 flyer. Yeah, with an upkeep of 2. Like, I would at least have 2 in there.
Yeah,
But yes, definitely a shout out for that like badass fucking Rush signature on it.
Yeah. This is cool. This is a cool deck. It's got aggro elements, but like control elements in it too.
Yeah.
A lot of control.
I'm not sure about the Gremlins. Because it taps to like it basically it's a relic barrier.
I think so.
June and Ifrit, to be fair, is 2 black and 1, so it's a 3/3 flying for 3 with a 2 black upkeep. It's 2 black and 1. It's not just 2 black.
Okay. I mean, it's still pretty efficient for like old school.
Mainly, it just has a badass artwork.
It does have that.
But the powerhouse in this deck is the fucking Hellfire. Then there's 3 of them. This is the Wrath of God and it destroys all non-black creatures, including artifact creatures, which is, if you think about how like Ashes to Ashes can't target artifact creatures, and artifact hate for black usually has a sacrifice, like you gotta you gotta sacrifice something to destroy an artifact kind of thing.
It's a Phyrexia.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
That would actually probably be pretty good in this.
It would be good in this, but he would need to squeeze in. He would need to squeeze in Rook Eggs, and then it would be baller on. But Hellfire, because you could Hellfire your own. You could sack it to Gate to Phyrexia, or you could Hellfire your own Rook Egg and get your token. I mean That would be cool, but I just like the fact he's running Hellfire, which is 3 black and 2 to destroy all non-black creatures. You pay a bunch of life.
Yeah. I'd say Word of Binding is also on my chopping block.
Yeah,
I don't know how good that is.
it's only good in a last-minute scenario where they have blockers, and if you can get in for that final point or two of damage, it can be good. But yes, I think that could be cut. The Kumbaj Witches, though, these are a 1/3 for 2 black. They're absolutely fantastic blocker, and the damage that they deal can add up. And
yeah.
The other card that's kind of down the bottom is Sorcerer's Queen.
Yeah, it's a very controlling card.
Yeah, super sick.
Yeah, I mean, you just tap those bad boys or bad ladies, whatever, and whatever's attacking you is a 0/2. Pretty powerful.
Whatever's blocking you too, you can just surprise somebody like that. You're like, okay.
Yeah, if they block, and you're like, all right, you have 0 power. And of course, Jusum's an Underworld Dream. So I just really, really like this deck, and yeah, I saw a couple Christopher's matches, and he piloted it really well. It's not just the deck build; it's the player and the way they play it, and he did a really good job.
He did play his Word of Binding very well. Like he, as much as it seems like a cuttable card, but he seems to know how to use it, and he has. I don't think 2 is. I think 3 would definitely be too many. 2 is.
Well, imagine getting.
He's getting his damage in. He's got those Underworld Dreams pinging people down.
Right.
Thinking about using the witches to ping them down when he's ahead. He's getting through. He's probably throwing I think the Hassan Ogress and the Sorcerer's Queens are a lot of defense, actually, early defense for him.
Yeah, the early defense, and the Word of Binding turns the Hazard Ogress into late offense, because you've got those ogresses. Let's say you've got a couple ogres sitting around. Well, you just Word of Binding, and though if you can get in with 2 ogres, that's 6 damage because they're 3/2s.
I know it does as much damage as a Serendib. It's like she may not look quite as good as a Serendib.
Right. Yeah. Anyway. So props to Christopher Zach.
Either of the Serendibs, the if Biff or the actual Serendib.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Did you take her over them? This is a fair call. I respect that.
So props to Christopher Zach, his first tournament, making it into the top 8. I mean, that's an accomplishment right there. A lot of the players have played since tournament 1, and so Christopher has come in and really shown his magic skill abilities, and congrats to him for making top 8, and I wish him very good luck in his match. So he's going to be playing against Terry Phillip Hutchings. Now, Terry Phillip Hutchings is also a new player. This is his, I believe, his 3rd Four Horsemen tournament. He played in the Pauper Singleton and the Pauper Doubleton, and now he's playing in the first regular Four Horsemen, running red-green. What do you guys think of this deck?
Oh, this guy's no stranger to Old School. He's played a lot of 7 points, so this is Four Horsemen's right up his alley. This is a very, very straightforward deck. Curd Apes right away, leading the way. You got Burn to remove, you got Burn to finish things off. I think he's clued in that Fisher's a fantastic card, just overall in this format. And he's got a bunch of big creatures. You got 3 Trikes, 1 Triskelion, and a bunch of Urn. It seems very solid to me. Some counterspell back up. It seems like he's running. He's running UR counter burn plus a green splash for like the early aggro, the zoo aggro.
Yeah, I mean, this seems super fucking like solid.
Yeah.
The only thing that bothers me, and this is probably just more of a pet peeve, assuming that the left rail is his sideboard.
No, the right rail with the rook eggs is his sideboard, I think, right?
Oh, sorry. Yes, that makes a lot more sense. I was going to say the left rail seems to confuse me. Okay, yeah, then this is just fucking solid. I can't tell what half of these cards are on the right, though.
Okay, so it's 2. His sideboard on the right is 2 rook eggs, 3 active volcanoes, 3 scavenger folks, 3 Argothian pixies, 3 flash flood, and a recall.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I feel like this is such an old school thing of wanting to, if you're blue like blue-red, you run like Rebs and Bebs. I don't know, and I've been guilty of this. I don't think it translates as well to Four Horsemen to run the red element, or I mean the active volcanoes, because aside from whatchamacallit, Blood Moon, I don't know what else you're hitting.
The active volcanoes only hit blue spells, so it's just blue.
Or sorry, the flash floods. I mean, sorry.
Oh,
flash
I think he does need them though. He doesn't have a lot of basics, so Blood Moon's a problem for him.
I mean, if you give him all red, he can still work with it.
He could, but he might end up with a lot of dead cards in his hand as well.
I guess. Yeah.
I know I've run a lot of greedy mana bases. 4 flash floods are like auto included in my sideboard. For those decks, he's kind of close to that. But, I mean,
I also haven't seen a lot of Blood Moon because people don't normally run this greedy of mana bases. And maybe it's just like the couple of matches that I've had, but I have not seen a lot of Blood Moons.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. When it comes to Blood Moon, by the time it comes out, unless you can play a first turn elf and a second turn Blood Moon, by the time it comes out, like, you know, if you're playing robots or whatever, robots, you'd think that Blood Moon would hurt robots, but frankly, like, all my lands are still lands that tap for mana, and I can still play my robots on turn 5 or 6, right? It would stop some of these early greedy decks that are not running any islands. I've seen decks with no basic lands at all. So Philip's at least running his 4 basic islands, and he is running Flash Flood in his sideboard. So even if Blood Moon does come up, eventually, I mean, he's got 2 forests, he's got 2 mountains, he's got 4 islands. He might be able to pilot around it and eventually get the Flash Flood and get rid of it and get back in the game.
I mean, I guess he's not as effective as some people. I've seen definitely greedier mana bases.
Yeah, I do think there's
it's not as good as a blue elemental blast because you can't counter a spell.
Right. I do think there is an opportunity for a really aggressive Blood Moon deck to come in, because what I see happening, and Peter, you've seen this too, is Island of Whack Whack is unrestricted, Diamond Valley is unrestricted, you know, Pendlehaven, Caracas, there's the One Maze of Ith and the Factory and the Workshop. Like, there's so many utility lands. It almost makes sense to play Blood Moon just to deal with all these fucking utility lands.
It does until you run into the guy running mono white or something. He just doesn't care. It's like it's all good.
Well, that's why it could be a sideboard. It is a viable sideboard card if you're running red, I think.
So we all agree. I think Terry's just got a super strong build here overall. It's just playing the best cards from these colors.
Yes, and he's got the 3 pyrotechnics to deal with weenie decks or finish off his opponent in addition to the chains. And he's very smartly running 2 fissures, which can help him deal with lands as well as creatures. He can deal with an Island of Whack Whack or a Maze of Ith, you know, right. Or he can take out a creature.
Yeah, a good card.
Yeah, so this is going to be... I really hope... Terry is on UK time, and Christopher is on North America time, so we're going to have to really coordinate with these guys. It's probably going to be a late night for Terry, is what I'm predicting. Maybe over the weekend, this weekend. I do not want to miss this match. I want to make sure we get the video of this one, because I think this will be a really good matchup. Okay, predictions time.
As far as predictions, yeah. I'm going to go with 3.
With Terry?
Yeah.
Okay. Peter?
Can you go back, Terry? What does Terry have for, like, 1/1 creatures? Did I just miss?
He has no 1/1s. I mean, the Curd Apes are 1/1s, but if he has a forest, they're 2/3s. So yeah,
I guess that's why the Pendlehaven is there.
Yeah, there's that one Pendlehaven just in case.
I would not run the Pendlehaven because I'd rather have the forest. Anyway, that's the only thing I could say about it, because in that scenario, and you know, go back one more time. I hate to say anything against Christopher's running the mono black. I think he's in a real pickle of a situation, because Terry's got good removal for all his problematic best setup combo pieces here.
He's got no answer for Hellfire, though. And if you look, there's 4
No, he doesn't.
Hellfires. Actually, I thought there was 3.
Just play out more.
There's
He's got an answer. His answer is to burn them down.
well,
Burn
yeah. The chain lightnings is an answer. But on turn 5, he's not running Fellwar Stones, right? Nope, he's running Jaloom Tome. On turn 5, Chris can Hellfire and wipe Terry's board completely, and he's running 4 of those.
Yeah, I mean, if Chris does that and then plays out the next turn, or has already a Juzam on board, and then somehow Terry doesn't have his maze to deal with it or any other way to deal with it, Terry's going to lose that game.
Also, the Curd Apes are basically useless. I mean, he's going to have 4 Kumbaj Witches, 4 Urg Raiders, and 4 Hazran Ogress. That's 12 creatures that all come down on turn 2. And the Curd Apes...
not on the same turn.
The Curd Apes can't do shit about that. These little black creatures, I mean, particularly the Kumbaj Witches, they can't get through that.
No. I'm still taking Terry in this one, to be honest, and it's just because, like I say, he's got the removal for what he needs. I think Terry's a savvy enough player to probably hold those mana drains and those remove souls for when he needs to use them, and I think he'll probably not want to lose all his board state to Hellfire, so if he doesn't have a mana drain, I don't think he'll overcommit to the board.
Now that is a great point. Yeah, the mana drain can answer the Hellfire, and if he studies these deck pictures, which I expect he will look at this deck and go, okay, the only thing I'm worried about here is Hellfire.
Hellfire and Juzam. Juzam can be answered with the remove soul or some other combination of blocking plus damage, and Hellfire just has to be countered if he's got a board state.
Let's look at one last thing before we move on. Terry's deck, his mana base, he's got 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 16 plus 4, so he's got 20, 1, 2, 3. He's running 25 lands, and one of them is a Maze of Ith. So this is something he and I talked about a lot, that you need 24 lands in Four Horsemen at a minimum for every deck, and he's very wisely bolstered his mana base. I cannot tell what Christopher Zach's swamp count is, because it's just a big stack of swamps, so I wonder how many lands he's got. I don't know.
He could go as low as 22. If he's not running any utility lands or just all black lands, he could do 22 in this deck.
Yeah, and you're right, Peter. Terry's a very solid player. It's interesting you made that comment earlier that you think that he's a 7-point singleton player, and that Four Horsemen was right down his alley. Why do you think Four Horsemen is attractive to 7-point singleton players?
I don't know if it is attractive to 7-point singleton players, but I do know from playing 7-point singleton and also being in this, like the cards you'll encounter when you play 7 points are a lot of these cards that you don't see frequently in your standard decks in the old school format. So having actually played Four Horsemen, I was like already familiar with all these fringe cards, and a lot of those fringe cards make up the main card pool or part of the large card pool as a whole.
I see.
Four Horsemen. That's my reasoning there. So I think that Terry's aware of these cards. That's what I'm saying. He's heard of. Maybe he's not seen someone play Hellfire before in a while. I've been doubt that. I haven't either. But you're always hoping.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm gonna go with the underdog.
I think Terry knows how to play his deck. I think if Terry doesn't have a counterspell, he'll be very frugal of how he commits to the board. I think if he does have the counterspell, he'll be holding it poised to use it.
All right. I'm gonna go with the underdog. I'm gonna vote for Chris. Parker and Peter are voting for Terry. Okay.
Go Terry.
Go Chris.
All right, Chris.
Okay, next matchup. So today at lunch, in these quarterfinals playoffs, I played William Kuhn. I really love William. He's a German guy. He's got a great sense of humor, and he has played this White Weenie deck, different variations of this same White Weenie deck in Swedish, Atlantic, X-Point, and Four Horsemen. And talk about a well-rounded player. William is super skilled. He pilots his decks incredibly well. And hats off to William for making it to the top 8. So let's start with Damien's deck first, and then we'll get into William's deck. We have Tabernacle, Caracas, Plains, Living Plains, Drop of Honey. This deck is killer. You've seen this, right, Peter? Have you seen this deck picture before? Because I posted them last night.
Yeah, I had to look at it. I definitely did.
Parker, you probably haven't seen this yet, but this deck I've played against it because I did a bunch of testing with Damien, and he had like 5 different versions of this deck, and this is what he settled on, and it is a powerhouse. It's got 4 of everything that it needs for the combos: 4 Living Plains, 4 Drops of Honey, 4 Tabernacles, 4 Caracas. And then what's making this deck work is it's got 4 mana drains. That's what
Is it me?
Huh? Oh, I think that was you, Parker. Parker, I think you're dropping. Peter, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I hear you just fine.
Yeah, Parker's having some connectivity challenges. Maybe he can jump out and jump back in. Looks like that's what he's doing. So in the lower left-hand corner, I really think that since we've got a winter theme for the winter months, these mana drains look so nice with the winter theme. In the lower left-hand corner, the proxies.
That's what that is. It's sweet. I figured it was a mana drain.
Yeah.
That's so he's running Brainwash over Spirit Link.
Brainwash over Spirit Link. Yeah, it's interesting, right?
Well,
because
that is Spirit Link. I'm not seeing what's behind the Desert Twister.
That's 3 Divine Offerings, 4 Brainwash, 4 Gaseous Form. Yeah, he's running the Brainwash.
Why? Why do you think?
I don't know. It's interesting. I mean, he could have run 4 Brainwash and 4 Spirit Link, but I can tell you this: when you have Tabernacle in play, everything costs 1, and if you also have to pay 3 to attack, it all adds up.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's the case. Now, that makes sense on the surface, but having analyzed this deck, and also, like, Damien and I have brewed Living Plains decks together a few times, and Living Plane is one of my favorite cards to try to brew a deck around. If you have the Tabernacle in play, you've already solved that Tabernacle situation, that problem, and you're doing fine. And that's great that you have that on the board because you don't have any creatures yet. And the Brainwash is not just so like the way the Brainwash comes out is usually like you won't have the Tabernacle on the board. You'll be playing the Brainwash because you don't have that on the board. And then people will just generally, I find, in my experience anyway, eventually play around the Brainwash. It won't be an issue unless you can get your Tabernacle. Now, imagine if that Spirit Link for a second, that's going to stop the damage entirely. They'll never play around it. And if you do play your Tabernacle, then that creature with Spirit Link, they'll just more than likely sacrifice it.
It won't stop it entirely. So here's why I'm assuming Damien went with Brainwash instead of Spirit Link, because it doesn't stop the damage entirely. If you've got multiple creatures that are Spirit Linked and they all attack in the same turn, and you are low on life, you will go below 0, and you will die before the Spirit Links will gain you the life back.
That's a fair point. I can accept that argument. Like that's a situation though. You have to imagine a situation. Now you already have Tabernacle on the board.
Yeah.
Because you have for that to work. And this person is playing out creatures into it.
Yeah. Damien's often low on life by the time he gets the 3-way combo.
Yeah.
And so he probably cannot afford to have Spirit Link, because if he's at 3 or 4 life and they hit him, then it's over. That's my assumption.
He doesn't have any other card in the it's that or like Telekinesis. He doesn't have other cards in the pool to reach on, or Venerean Gold. Like those are the only cards he could reach on.
Yeah.
To prevent the loss of life immediately.
Parker, what do you think of this deck?
Me?
Yeah.
I mean, I dig it. I think I was just looking because the way that Untamed Wild reads versus the way it plays in Chandelar, yeah, it only searches up a basic land.
That's right.
Yeah, that's how it's errated.
Yeah, but it does have a shuffle effect, which is interesting with the Sylvan.
Yeah, but I was gonna say, like, 4 Untamed Wild seems like a lot, considering that he has only what's that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9 lands that can actually search up. I mean, that's not nothing, but most of his lands are not, basic.
Well, he's only got he's running 2 islands, 3 forests, and 1 plains in terms of basic lands.
Yeah, I'd say like besides the shuffle effect, that seems pretty greedy.
Hmm.
And the only reason I think he's doing it is so that he can play out his living plains as soon as possible and hold up mana for the mana drain.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's there to grab the islands early on for the mana drain and then shuffle for a Sylvan Library. That's really what it's for.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. It's definitely interesting.
Well, I've played this deck, and it like, it's impossible to do anything once he gets the lock. Like, it's literally like all your lands have to tap to pay for your own lands to stay in because of Tabernacle, and all your creatures then don't. If you save your lands, you can't save your creatures. If you save your creatures, you can't save your lands. And then he just pops he uses Caracas to pop the land/creature legend, the Tabernacle, back to his hand, and he does not have to pay the Tabernacle upkeep, and you do.
Parker knows.
Oh yeah, I know that. What was the card below Desert Twister?
Oh, it's 3 Divine Offerings and 1 Desert Twister.
Divine Offering. Okay.
Yeah.
Divine Offering feels more like a sideboard card because I don't think a lot of people are playing artifacts main.
Fair point.
Well, Triskelions everywhere, and so are things like Fellwar Stones, Jaloom Tomes, stuff like that.
Yeah, but I mean, his whole lock is to tap you out and to like kill all your creatures. So I don't know if he's really that worried about that shit.
Yeah, that's a good point. You maybe he could sideboard those.
And I'm sure they do come out.
Well, he's also running 2 Flash Flood main deck because of all the red and the Rook eggs and the Rook tokens.
Yeah. I don't know. Pretty solid. It's a nice little sort of like lock deck.
I think it's really spicy. I think it's one of the spiciest, like, out of left field, just completely out of the box decks we've seen so far. Okay, so that is Damien's deck. Let's check out William Kuhn's. Oh, I need to fix the deck title. White, Weenie, Aggravin, Transmogrant. So this deck, oh my gosh, I played this deck today, and let me reshare with you guys since I had to change that.
With Transmogrant, then Divine Offering comes into play.
It could be good there, right?
Yeah, I mean the main deck Divine Offerings are starting to look really good here. However, the Divine Offering doesn't solve the problem. So what William is doing with this deck is he has infinite recursion of his transmogrants via his Aggravin Archaeologists.
Yeah.
So he's only running 2 Archaeologists, but in the matches I played him, that was enough. Like, he got him every game, and he gets a transmogrant down, and he pops it at an opportune time, like when you use Triskelion or try and do a damage. So he, all of a sudden his creature is +1/+1. And then the next turn, he gets that transmogrant back with his Archaeologist and plays it again. And in the game I played with him, he had 6 or 7 creatures, and all of them had transmogrants pumps on them. Now, it does change them to artifact creatures, and it can only be used on a non-artifact creature, but it strengthens all his white weenies and makes him very formidable. Also, the main trouble I had was Repenitent Blacksmith with a transmogrant, because I had some Falling Stars on my sideboard. They're fucking useless against the Blacksmith. But the 3 2/2 flying first strike Thunder Spirits, with the Transmogrant, they become 3/3 first strikers, and he might have the Vultures or something else, and it just really starts to add up. With a 3/3 flying first striker is really hard to deal with.
Yeah, I would say that, like, I'd like to see a 4th Thunder Spirit, and maybe I just don't believe in Osai Vulture, and maybe against you, Chad, with your Falling Stars,
Uh-huh.
like Blacksmith is good, but I would say that like as far as a meta call, 4 main seems like a lot.
Well, Blacksmith is also good. I'm finding Desert is really, really utilitarian and extremely underrated, especially once you get 2 or 3 deserts out. So, what Blacksmith gets you is if they get an early desert, it doesn't care because it's a 1/2. And if you're
Sure.
playing
I
against
mean-
red, it's even better.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, then it's like, I don't know, yeah, being desert proof or
Yeah.
sandstorm proof
Yes,
is
Sandstorm.
nice. But maybe if you're going with the Osai Vultures and the banding, because that's what that card does, right? It's
No,
banding.
no. You're thinking of the Mesa Pegasus. The
Oh,
the,
right.
the Osai Vultures are a 1/1 flyer, and every time a creature dies, you put a counter on it.
Sure. It's like whatchamacallit, Sanger.
And
bad
but it's
yeah.
limited to once per turn, once on your turn, once on your opponent's turn. So if a creature dies, you can get a counter, and this was relevant in my match with William. And you can remove 2 counters to give the vulture +1/+1. Now,
I wonder if these would be better as squires.
the 1/2 squires. Well, they don't. The squires don't fly. The vultures do.
No. I meant the blacksmiths. Sorry.
Oh, the blacksmiths. What?
Yeah,
What?
First
Why would?
Strike might be more relevant main deck than Pro Red.
Well, the squires don't have first strike, do they? Oh, yes. Are you thinking of pikemen?
Pikemen, yes.
Okay, you're thinking of the 1/1 banning first strike pikemen.
Oh shit! Never mind. All right, fuck me. All right, these are good.
Yeah.
Technically good, but I think Osai, you're right. They hit the nail. There's like it's like a bad cabal ghoul.
Yeah, sort of. But
But
here's let me highlight some of the synergies because I saw all these things play out and it was brilliant. Like this deck has so much brilliance in it, and it's under it like you don't see it on the surface until you play it. So the other thing that the transmogrants, the Ashnod's transmogrants do is they can be used offensively or defensively. He's running 4 Divine Offerings and a Dust to Dust main, and he's got 2 Dust to Dust in his sideboard. Now, the way William wields this is if he needs the power to protect his creatures, he uses it on his creatures. But primarily, if he doesn't need the power, he uses it on your creatures, and then he destroys them with Divine Offering or Dust to Dust, and he gains life or removes them from the game.
Yeah, that sounds good.
It's better than good. Like he removed too many creatures of mine using Dust to Dust and Divine Offering. It was so backbreaking.
I wonder how often the Tormod's Crypt or the Felden's Cane actually are relevant.
So that's his backup plan, and that came into play in our game 3. We actually played. He beat me 2-0, but the first game was like I lost because of a play error on my part. It was really dumb. Game 2, it was Mana Screw, and then he was like, "Let's play again," because it was so close. Game 1, and in games 2 and 3, he brought in his Millstone because I was playing robots, blue flyers and robots, and he was worried about keeping pace. And ultimately, he's like, "I'm going to put in my Felwar Stone as a plan B in case it's a board lock," and it actually came into play. It was a long game. And the Millstone came out, and I actually mana drained it because I knew that would be a potential game loser for me. And I actually ended up winning game 3.
So they're saying the Felden's Cane didn't work out for him.
Well, no, I'm saying Millstone was relevant.
It was relevant enough to get mana drain.
It was relevant enough that, yes, that otherwise, with a bunch of blockers on my side and a bunch of weenies on his side, it was kind of a game lock. And what happened was once I got Triskelion with Tawnos Coffin, it was kind of game over for him. And so he needed a plan B, and that's why the Millstone is there. He's also running Knowledge Vault, which is a really cool card.
You pay some mana, stick some cards under the vault, and then eventually switch it to your hand?
Yeah, once you run down to 0 hands, you can get the hand from the vault and try and play everything out.
I don't think you even have to be at 0. You can just switch anytime you want.
Yeah, you can do it anytime you want, but usually you do it when you have low hand card count.
Or a garbage hand, yeah.
The other thing he's got going on is he's got land tax, and that was extremely difficult for me to deal with because I was playing robots, so I had to just fucking plow right into land tax, and he was taxing away and filtering out all his planes, and Like, I'm so proud of this White Weenie build, because White Weenie, just like the black deck that Chris has, White Weenie hasn't really had a chance to shine, and Williams really made it happen.
I think that if we're gonna go to prediction, I think Damien's gonna find that this deck is harder to beat. Well, I don't think that he expected. I don't think he thinks it's gonna be an easy game at all. But so I'm also running a Living Plains deck, and I ran into Philip, who was on Tax Edge, and of course, land tax is really hard to play against if you're playing Living Plains, because the person's gonna have more lands than you, and they're always gonna continually be able to get lands, and he had a lot of basics that he could just keep getting, and with Philip's deck, though, he wasn't as aggro as this deck, and so I was able to lay a drop of honey, lay drops of honey, and just basically take down his lands and take down his creatures. Whereas this deck here seems to have a lot of creatures it can bring back, or it can keep playing out. So maybe he'll be able to pressure Damien that way. He also has a Caracas, by the way.
Now that is a good point. That is the definitive backbreaker. So let's scroll back to Damien's combo. If William can get into his Caracas early, then Damien's combo is completely fucked, because
he has to draw a strip line too.
Yes, William can pop the Tabernacle back the same as Damien, and it negates that upkeep, and so that is the card that will, I think, determine whether William will win or lose, is Caracas.
And it's a one of with no card selection other than Jail and Tome.
That's right.
So, or Knowledge Vault sideboard, but yeah, you're sort of digging for it.
Yeah, mulligans. I think it's probably worth he should try to, unless he has a perfect hand, like mulligan his first hand, just to see if he can get it on the second one. You know, I would mulligan.
The other card I wanted to talk about in William's sideboard that was actually relevant in our matches is Angelic Voices. It's expensive, and it seems like, I mean, I remember playing this when I was a kid. I was like, oh, it's a really expensive crusade. But as long as all your creatures are white and artifact, then all of your creatures get +1/+1. And this was relevant because once he got down his, flyers, he had a couple Thunder Spirits and a Preacher or two, and he played Angelic Voices, and he's got the Transmogrants out. He's got those Transmogrants out. Your Triskelion quickly becomes irrelevant if he's got Angelic Voices and Transmogrant, because you just can't do enough damage to kill stuff. So it's really brilliant that he has an answer for Triskelion even. And then those Preachers in the main board next to the land tax in the middle, it's like once you get your big fatty established, well, he just plays Preacher, and if it's protected by a Transmogrant or Angelic Voices, you have a real hard time dealing with Preacher as well.
Interesting.
Yeah. Now the other thing is he's running Diamond Valley, and also what's next to the Caracas?
Oh yeah, Safe Haven, right?
He's got a Christopher Rush signed Safe Haven, and he can protect his Preacher with Safe Haven, or his Agrivin Archaeologist.
Yeah. He seems to understand his deck. I think that the more you look at it, the better this deck.
The more you study this deck, the more you realize the brilliance, like the deep, intricate levels of brilliance that William has baked into this. What really makes it work is the Archaeologists and the Transmogrants with the Dust to Dust and Divine Offerings. That's what the deck is all about. And the spicy spice is the Diamond Valley, so he can sack things if he loses them and survive, or he can take your shit and sack it with the Preacher, and that Safe Haven to protect as well. There's so much greatness here.
All right.
Well, I feel like as far as sideboarding goes, I feel like the Preachers would come out, and the Mazavith comes out. I think he has a lot more to go out than in the game 2 and game 3, because Spirit Link is dead. I don't know what the card is to the left of Spirit Link in the sideboard.
Those are Angelic Voices.
Oh, that's I just feel like, as far as this deck being a silver bullet for the meta or just general decks, yes. This is probably just going to be a really hard matchup.
Yeah. If someone's going to win this 2-1, it's going to be a really a bruising matchup.
All right. Well, that brings us to predictions. So, another quick look at Damien's Tabernacle planes drop.
This is another brilliant deck. Like this
Oh,
deck
yeah.
synergizes and
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, there's so much brilliance here in Damien's deck too, and I think in terms of being like out of the box, just completely innovative thinking, this deck takes the cake. Nobody has done anything like this.
I'm going to give the edge to Damien because of the. You know why I'm going to give the edge to Damien because of the tabernacles, and he doesn't have to make them into lands until he's ready to do so.
Yeah.
So I think the tabernacle is going to hurt that white weenie operation pretty severely.
And drop a funny and like
too, yes.
Crash's forms and stuff. Like he doesn't even need to assemble a combo in order to like pick off all the creatures.
Yeah,
so
it's
just gonna.
Oh, sorry, Parker. Go ahead.
It's just gonna be a really hard matchup. Like this is designed to deal with creatures.
Yeah,
not even like combo related.
Yeah, there's a creature deck designed to deal with troublesome decks, and here's a deck that's designed to deal. They're gonna really. It's nice. They're gonna have a lot of, plays and answers to each other, and that's like one of those best type of games you could have.
Well, William was looking at the deck pictures because we talked about it after our match today, and then Damien and William were chatting in the group chat, and William said, "Hey, Damien, at what time would you like to schedule your match so you can beat me?"
Yeah, unfortunately, I think that's the answer. Is that this deck does very well against another creature deck.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
but this is, I think, just gonna steamroll.
Yeah,
because it's got all the answers.
I agree. Yeah, as much as I love William and I love his deck and I love the brilliance and everything that's in this, I have to agree. I think Damien is going to win. I predict a 2-1 win.
At least, yeah.
Parker, you agree? Peter, what do you think?
Yeah.
That was my prediction. I said it's going to be
okay.
I think someone's going to take the 2-1. I think that one time Damien will not quite get it together in his assembly. He'll mulligan. He'll be a little low. It won't be perfect, and then William will probably take that match.
Okay.
If he can stay under the land tax and drop a tabernacle, like he's gonna get it 2-0.
Yeah.
All right, we're coming up on an hour 15. We should probably try to wrap this up pretty quick. Let's get to the very last match. It's Mike Clements versus our very own, here with us tonight, Mr. Soltez. By the way, Peter, am I saying your last name correctly?
I mean, it's really hard to say correctly, and it's hard to say if you're saying it correctly because it's a foreign language name, and you can't possibly pronounce it because you don't speak that language. So you're doing great.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, so this deck, I played against Mike Clements in our group matches. He was in my group, and we had 3 extremely close games. I recorded it. I think it's going to be a great video, but Mike beat me 2-1, and his deck was extremely tough, and he had some fantastic combos. It's a green-black deck, and there's a lot of synergies here. It's another Living Plains. You may not be able to quite see it, but on the lower left, the third card from the left is 2 Living Plains. And, I just thought this deck was fabulous. Like, it was so great. The way Mike played it, the things he was doing between the Living Plains and the Kumbaj Witches, that combo right there was almost the same kind of lock, because once my lands were creatures, he just plucked them off with his Kumbaj Witches. And
did you not pluck off his lands in response?
Well, I did in some cases, but what he was doing was he was holding extra lands in his hand, and he has Fellwar Stone.
He also has Sorceress Queen, so he can protect his lands with that.
Yes, so that's right. He was turning his lands into 0/2, so I couldn't pick them off with his witch's damage. The other thing he has going on is he was comboing between Fallen Angel and Onulet. He's actually running 2 Onulet, and he was gaining life, sacrificing his dudes, and then pumping his angel to hit for 5 in the air. And his sideboard, we'll talk about that in a minute, was relevant in our games. But his deck was very fast, and it had a lot of synergy. What do you
This
guys?
is a deck that I'd like to see red in. Honestly, is like maybe not the Ashes to Ashes, and you're already running 4 City of Brass. Like you could just splash red for the
Pyrotechnic.
Ruck Eggs with the Fallen Angels,
Mhm.
and that gives you access to maybe like Chain Lightning or something.
It also gives you access to pyrotechnics, where you could just pyrotechnics all their lands away once you living plains them.
Yeah,
But
So,
it
like,
is hard to
Whirling
play
Dervish
3
is-
color.
it is, but like you are playing Felwar. Like I said, you're already playing 4 City of Brass. You don't need you don't need red turn 1 through 3, so you could splash it. Whirling Dervish might be more of a sideboard card. But yeah, this seems solid. No
Yep.
shuffle effects, which is a sort of a problem with the Sylvan Library.
Yeah. The other thing that he has going on in his sideboard, take a look at his sideboard. So starting at the top, he's got 2 Dark Heart of the Wood, 3 Crumble, 1 Ashes to Ashes extra, 2 Ashnod's Transmogrant, 2 Gate to Phyrexia, a third Sorcerer's Queen, and then check this out, 4 Transmutation. Now, Transmutation is it's an instant. It costs a black and 1. And it switches the power and toughness of any creature, either yours or your opponent's.
Ooh, that's gonna be good with Sorcerer's Queen. Hey,
Yes, that's right. So he's got this.
He's found another way to remove creatures.
He's found another way to remove creatures with Sorcerer's Queen and Transmutation. You know, he can turn your dude into a 0/2 and switch you.
I like he kept it a sideboard card. Like if he needs to deal with more creatures, he'll bring it in. I think that's really cool.
Right, and it's an instant, so it's only 1 black. It doesn't cost 2 black, so it can totally be played. The Gate to Phyrexia was relevant in our match, and I had a bunch of artifacts with my robots and shit, and he brings in Gate to Phyrexia, and he's sacking Onulet, gaining life and destroying my robots. It was brutal.
Good on Mike. Wow.
Yeah. He's also running the 4 Fell Wars and the 3 and the 4 Dark Elves. So he's maxed on mana ramp. Land counts. Let's look at his land counts. So 6, 7, 8, 12, 16, 18. So he's got 20 land. So his land is very greedy. I think for 4 Horsemen, 20 land is very greedy.
With 4 Fell Wars.
But the 4 Fell Wars and the 4 Elves, so he's got 28 mana sources total.
I think I count as 24 because I count them each as a half a mana source.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
That's fair. And 24 seems to be the magic number minimum.
I think the math on why he's running so much ramp is the Fallen Angel and the Urnums. He just wants to play those out quickly, and he's probably ending a lot of matches with those 2 cards.
Yeah. And then the 4 Oubliette, that was backbreaking. Like right when I felt like I finally was recovering, then he just Oublietted my, Tetravis or whatever it was, and I was just back on my heels again.
Being a actual 2-color deck, do you think that Juzam would be better than Urnum here?
Well, it does cost the double black. That 1 green and then not having to take the damage, it makes a difference because he is going to be from time to time tapping his Elves of Deep Shadow for damage. Plus he's got City of Brass, so I guess he figured, hey, 4 City of Brass, 4 Elves of Deep Shadow, I'll lay off the Juzums and put the Urnums.
I think also the same reason. I think it's 1 less point of damage, but it has the same toughness, and the toughness is the key of those creatures, is that they're harder to remove.
Yeah, toughness is more important than power.
At that point, yeah, between 4 and 5 is not that important, but in terms of toughness, it's really a big difference. It's a quantum leap in toughness. And the Spirit Link and Mazes really can just punish people who play those creatures that deal you 1 damage a turn. And I think he's just limiting his vulnerabilities. I think that's what it's about. I think it's an okay play. To me, I would prefer it too. I would prefer the Urnums over the Juzam.
I could see maybe an argument for 2 main deck Juzams over the 2 Dervish.
Hmm.
Because you are playing 4 elves, 4 Felwar, so
Yeah.
your ability to hit it, like you want to maximize your turn 4s rather than your turn 2s.
Well, and he also has for the 2 mana cost, he does have Felwar Stone, and he's got the Onulets, which are 3, but if you have an elf first turn, you could play an Onulet second turn. So he does have other mana ramp options for that 2 to 3 arena, including Kumbaj Witches and Sorcerer's Queen.
So what you said, Parker, also, you're probably right. I think that you could put the 2 Juzams in there, and I wouldn't be as hesitant because he has 4 Fallen Angels. He probably can sacrifice them if they're bringing him down.
Yeah, that's a good point.
There's a way to get out, basically, of that bad situation. Or you can make it an artifact creature and throw it at somebody. He could do a few things with them to get them out of his way.
I feel like it's probably more of a personal preference, but I'm a little down on Dervish, just especially with being like double green. It's only 1/1 for 1 turn with your Pendlehaven, and that, prioritizing your later beat sticks over like early setup because you're already running so much like early ramp.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I think it would actually make the deck a little more dangerous if you had another bigger utility creature.
Okay, so that's Mike Clement's Fallen Witches Plains deck. And now for the finale of the video for today. Peter, your deck.
Here it is.
Trash.
Look at these shitty Greater Realm proxies. How lazy can you be? You can't get a...
never put them in. Why do they even bother putting them in the sideboard? Useless cards.
I hate people who don't take the effort to get the real cards or make a goddamn realistic proxy.
Although I'll never play them. There's no concern there. They're not useful.
I see you got the City of Brasses from Michelangelo Russo from the Paladin group.
I did, yeah. That was nice.
All right, Peter. Well, we can just let you sit back in monologue here.
I'd really rather you guys do it. I can't talk about my own deck. That's like, how do you know your date is halfway through if I'm an intense Magic player? Like, well, that's enough about me, honey. Let me tell you about my deck.
well, I'll start off in. I think there's only maybe 10 cards difference between your deck and Damien's deck. First of all.
Yeah, we played a little different.
The 4 Sandstorms, the 4 Spirit Links. I mean, you running the main deck Feldens. You've got 1 more Divine Offering. Okay, so there's probably 10 or 11 cards difference. The 2 Boomerangs main. So there's 13 cards difference between your deck.
Ivory Tower.
Oh, Ivory Tower. 14.
I'm also running 4 Sylvans. Not 2.
Okay, so there's 16 cards difference between your decks. Other than that, they're identical.
No special effects.
But talk us through this, Peter. Like, the show is yours. The floor is yours.
Okay, well, I know Damien's deck because we like to brew Living Plains together, him and I. We hadn't talked before this tournament at all, but this is like going back to when we were both like, oh, how can we make a better Living Plains deck in this format? And we were thinking, Tabernacle and Caracas. That's better than all these other things we were trying to do with like Holy Day and Exiling Creatures and Martyr's Cry. It's way more consistent, way easier to cast. And it's a land, so it's like harder to deal with, harder to remove, and Caracas even helps you towards your mana production. My deck comes out differently than some of the other ones. This is more of a sit back and play and respond type of deck. So they'll put out things, and I'll try to answer those things. If it's creatures, I'll hopefully have an Island of Walk because I am running 3 of those main deck or a Maze of Ith to slow them down. And if I can't slow that down, I'll Spirit Link. And if I can't go that far, I'll try to Drop of Honey. And while Drop of Honey is on the board, it's a great time to land Living Plain because it's going to also then, as it's finishing off their creatures, go over to their lands and start working its way down. And to that effect, Damien's running Brainwash, and I tried actually with this deck to run Brainwash, and I just wasn't impressed. And I found Sandstorm was much better than Brainwash. in terms of the utility to a Living Plains deck, because my main problems are surviving the early game, and Sandstorm is a great way to survive the early game. It's also a great way to surprise somebody when they attack you with their lands, and you just Sandstorm right away and just wipe all the lands. That's pretty much game over at that point. So I really am sold on Sandstorm being good in this deck. And what's different? I mean, he's running four tabbies. I'm running 3. He's running 4 Caracas. I'm running 3. But I feel like because of the Sylvan Library, I have more selection, and so I'm okay with having a little less of that combo there. The deck's a little slower than other decks, so Felden's Cane is in there in case I really get gridlocked with somebody. And let's say I lay out my combo and nobody can win because I played it out prematurely and I can't bounce it. Well, at least I can put the Felden's Cane and I will ultimately win because I'll be able to recycle my library. That's why it's there. Boomerang is to bounce, drop a honey back to my hand if it's causing a problem, or to bounce some other useful effect. There's not much else to it. 1 recall seemed like enough to me. Ivory Tower's there because why not? If the game's going slow, I may have a lot of cards in hand. It'll probably help me survive. That's my thinking about this deck. That's about it.
Yeah, I can see maybe main decking Boomerang over Felden's Cane, and you just bring that in case you're going long.
Yeah.
It has a little bit more utility outside of just recycling your deck.
Yeah.
Maybe if there was a little bit more of like Reanimator as a meta, having Felden's Cane main, or like Tormod's Crypt. But yeah, otherwise, I mean, I got fucking steamrolled. We played probably like 20 games.
Different decks though. There's a different deck after that. But it's meant to deal with creatures. Like, this deck is really meant to not be. It tries to make it so you don't get killed by creatures until you set up your what you want to do.
Yeah, super solid. I agree with everything you said about like running 3 of your combo pieces,
Mostly
like the Caracas and Tabernacle, because you don't necessarily want it game 1, like, or game game 1 turn 1 kind of thing.
Exactly.
You can wait and develop a little bit more, and you don't want to get flooded on them.
Yeah.
Especially with the selection of Sylvan Library. I think you could benefit from like Untamed Wilds.
Yeah.
Because you are running 4 Sylvans, and but you don't have that many basics. So it becomes a lot like, what are you really fishing up?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
Peter, I wanted to ask you, at what point did you have this eureka moment where you put the sandstorms in this bad boy?
When Brainwash wasn't working, I was trying to test this deck out, and I just was like, Brainwash is not. I'm sorry. It might be. It's not a good card. Like, I don't think it's a good card. I don't think it.
Did you try Gaseous Form instead of Brainwash?
I think it's. I also don't like that. It costs too many mana. It doesn't. So like I have Spirit Link and I have Tabernacle to deal with those other creatures. I have Drop of Honey and I have the mazes and the islands to slow things down to make them work. Like, to get that job done. I really feel like the thing that hurts this, like, if you're playing this deck, the thing that really hurts is when you get a bunch of 1/1s land on the board, and then they just start beating you up, and especially with Pendlehaven and stuff like that. So I found the Sandstorm is so good for that.
Oh man, yeah, I saw the games where you played. You played some of your opponents, and Sandstorm just fucking wiped people out. It was so brutal. I mean, you played Parker. Didn't you play Parker, and like Sandstorm just wrecked him.
Parker was the worst. But that was the worst for Parker. Sandstorm was really bad.
Parker, tell us about that game.
It's fucking elbow drop off the top rope. What do you want to hear?
It's just and sometimes I have 2 of them in my hand, and you can just kill all the 2/2s.
Yeah,
it's not bad. It's like, I feel like it's card advantage, whereas like Brainstorm feels like card disadvantage because you're playing a card that's not really like a long enough term solution for me in my deck. I'm not. Damien's is different. Maybe he needs it later in the game, but for me, it's like card disadvantage. And whereas Sandstorm, usually if I'm playing it, it's a 1-for-1, and sometimes it's better than that.
I wonder if, because you're running 4 mana drains main, you could top off with like 1 or 2 Triskelion just because also it pairs so well with Living Plane to just like plink off the lands and maybe have like an early beat stick that you just like drain into.
Okay, so I've also considered that as like my earliest builds of Living Plane before we even stumbled upon the Tabernacle Caracas combination was like, it was a Triskelion and Pyrotechnics type of style of Living Plane deck. And the thing that wasn't good about it is you'd run into someone running Trike and Pyrotechnics, and you would play out the Living Plane, and then they would play out their Trike or their Pyrotechnics, you know, the next turn. So you kind of like, you know, it's like, I'll play a Howling Mine. Oh, I'll draw a card and disenchant it. Like, it's like, you know, you feel like you really set yourself back.
But Peter, did you say that like I thought the Living Plains Tabernacle combo was known in other formats?
I never heard of it before until Damien and I were just sitting one night talking about it, going like, you know what? Wait a second. I never
So
heard
this
of it.
this is not something that was. There's not like an archetype from some other format that you chose.
No, I don't know enough Magic, and I haven't been playing long enough to have that type of, you know, going back way back machine into how that type of thing's done. But anyway, to answer your question, the thing I want to do with Mana Drain is I like this deck actually really, it's like a perfect hand, which is very rare to have, I would say, but you know, or fairish hand would be to have like a Living Plane in my hand, a Mana Drain, a couple of sources that would provide blue, ideally one of them being a tropical, and somehow draw into like another forest somewhere, and I can like basically just off of turn 2 Mana Drain a 1 or 2 mana spell, drop my Living Plane and hold up a green for a Sandstorm, or just right away dump my Drop of Honey. And when I'm doing that, what I'm saying is like, the 3 lands you have on the board are dead.
Yeah.
And then you have to decide, am I going to keep playing lands? Like, probably not, unless you have like a land tax. So you're accepting then to not play lands for 3 turns.
Yeah.
And probably have a reduced casting ability. And that's how so this is how I win, like how I've won a lot. It's sometimes I don't Mana Drain into this, but just play the Living Plains and play the Drop of Honey. And that's why the Boomerang is so important as well, because I don't really want to take down my lands. But at this point now, I'm starting to ramp things out faster and faster while they're slowing down. So that's my goal, is to slow. That's the other way. Besides all the slow down tactics with the utility lands and the Spirit Links and stuff to slow them down, if I really could just Mana Drain, play the Living Plains, and play a Drop of Honey, or hold up for the Sandstorm, I can probably do pretty good from there on in the game.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, besides that, what do you think about Flash Counter over something like Remove Soul?
I think it's better for me. Flash Counter is for the counter war. So I already have answers to creatures on the board when they hit. I do have the Mana Drain if I need to. And I'm thinking, so what's my sideboard about? I have an extra Boomerang because it's good utility and it works against a lot of different problems. I have the Crumbles because I don't really have a lot of artifact removal, and I don't really care about giving them life because I'm not worried about their life total, so it's fine. The Flash Flood is obviously there for Blood Moon. The Greater Realm of Preservation was just in case I'm getting, encounter a really bad Bernie deck that's just taking me down. Maybe I'll try playing 2 of those. I haven't yet. And the Flash Counter is if I ran into stuff like, and he ended up dropping, but like Richard Yu and a bunch of other people who are running control-ish style decks, maybe. So I haven't something else to back up the Mana Drains or stuff like that, like maybe a Blue Skies deck like Nyx. So that's what the sideboard was designed on. And I guess down there you see there's another Jalum Tomb again for like a mirror match against a very slow deck, and an Island of Walk against somebody who maybe is running a lot of flyers. Just go all in on the flyer. Just hate.
Well, thanks for that overview, Peter. Like, it's always interesting to hear the strategy from the brewer, right? If I were to do some commentary about this deck without input from you, like, you've really hit on some just very interesting and key points. And I think one of those most important ones is about the Sandstorm. Like you said, hey, I can drop my Living Plains on turn 2 if I have a couple of blue, green,
my
whatever.
Turn 3, their turn, Mana Drain theirs on turn 2, and exactly.
And then you're like, and I'm not worried about anything because if they attack me, I'll just Sandstorm all their fucking lands. Like, that is so brilliant. and that makes your deck, I think, a little faster than Damien's deck. So, Parker and Peter, is there anything else you want to say about either your deck or Mike's deck before I want to get into the last predictions about who you think's gonna make it to the semi and finals.
I don't know if I answered the question though, but the reason I don't run Remove Souls because I find it's a 1-for-1, and my deck is built around 2-for-1ing people as often as possible. So that's why I'm running the Flash Counter, because I can slow down their creatures already, and then I can hopefully remove 2-for-1ing on their creatures. That's why I chose that over the other one.
And Peter, I think these little intricacies and these details, these very specific strategic choices, this is what sets someone who's winning over and over apart from others who are just playing a little more casually. I think that right there hits the nail on the head. It's like you were thinking about your deck at a very discrete and specific level, and you're calculating things at a level that I think most, average or common or casual players are just not doing.
I don't know about that. I see a lot of creativity going in here. I just see a lot of, especially this tournament, I've seen so many cool decks.
Well, this tournament, yes. This tournament is different. This tournament's different from all the other tournaments. I mean, I opened up the video by saying I don't think we've seen this much spiciness and creativity and innovation since Tournament 5 when Brian Weissman was playing. Like, this has been like a game-changer tournament for the format, completely.
Yeah, cool. So I'll let you guys go ahead with your prediction. I won't make a prediction on my own match.
Okay, so let's.
I think it's Ghost to do. So I'll just.
Okay, so earlier on we said Nick versus John. We felt John would take it. Okay, so John will be in the top semifinals bracket. Christopher versus Terry. You guys thought Terry would take it. I played the underdog and went with Chris. Let's assume it's John versus Terry in semifinals bracket 1.
Yeah.
For semifinals bracket 2, we have Damien versus William. We all agreed we think Damien's going to crush. So Damien will go to semifinals.
And no matter what, Damien will play another Living Plains deck in the next
That's
one,
right.
No matter what
So that's right. And if you beat Mike Clements, I mean, we haven't voted yet. Actually, before I jumped the gun completely. Before we get to the final brackets, who do we think is going to win? Mike Clements versus Peter. Peter. I have to vote for Peter. As much as I love Mike's deck, I have to.
Same. But just the sheer amount of creature hate.
Yeah.
And
yes.
Honestly, like Drop of Honey being able to hit on a curve.
Mm-hmm.
Drop of Honey is, I think, if you are just all 1/1s, then it's basically just like Abyss at that point.
Yeah.
So, but like, or not Abyss, but whatever the fact, like you can play out a little shitter and
it's in every other turn Abyss.
Yeah. But Drop of Honey scaling up is going to be a problem. And, because he is curving up to more fatties, it's just going to catch up to him, I think, pretty quickly.
Yeah. Well, the one saving grace I think Mike Clements has for his Fallen Witches Plains deck is he himself runs Living Plains. So his deck is equipped to turn Living Plains into an advantage for him and a disadvantage for you. So it's
no, because Peter's running Sandstorm, and so like I don't think you care if he drops Living Plains.
I don't. I hope he does. I hope he plays.
Yeah,
it's so good for me.
It's actually more of a liability than anything.
I think he's taking Living Plains out in this. I'd be honest. He's not going to play Living Plains.
Yeah, he would sideboard it out. But the one saving grace he has is the Kumbaj Witches and his Sorceress Queen. With the Sorceress Queen, he can also change his own lands into 0/2s. And with the Kumbaj Witches, he can ping your lands, but you can ping his back. So, I don't know.
I would just ping the Sorceress Queen at that point.
Yeah, he can turn a land into a 1/2, which is not going to save them all.
Yeah. Okay, so you guys think that Peter's going to sweep this 2-0?
I'm not saying, but like you guys.
Yeah, I would say either 2-1, 2-0. Like, what's the real difference there?
He's gonna have to side a lot of cards out. That's the other thing I'll notice is like I don't have to side very much in at all. And
Yeah.
you could put the greater realm in.
Okay.
I felt like it.
So let's assume. So let's assume that. Let's assume Peter, you win this, and so we're gonna have Peter and Damien, the two Living Planes decks, and we had two Living Planes decks already with Mike and Peter. So we'll have Damien and Peter, and in the top brackets we'll have Nick and Terry, and then from Nick and Terry, we're gonna have the Blue Skies. Or sorry, from John. Sorry, not Nick and Terry. John, we thought would proceed. So for John and Terry, it's going to be the Gasbin aggro versus the red green on Terry. So what would you guys think about that? Who would win on John's Gasbin aggro versus Terry's red green?
Red, green, blue. He's running blue.
Red, green, blue. Excuse me.
I'll take Terry on that one.
Parker.
I don't have the mental space to remember without seeing the two decks, but
Okay, well, let's just jump back to them real quick. Blue Skies Flyers deck is this one.
That's
okay. Yeah.
Nick. But we're not seeing Nick. Nick is going to get beaten by John, we were saying.
I'm showing Nick's deck now.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. What am I doing on Nick's deck? Sorry, I'm on the wrong deck. John's deck, the red, green, blue deck. This is what we predicted would proceed, and this will be playing Terry's red, green. So this is red, blue, green. Okay, and then Terry's deck is the red, green, blue as well, but very different.
Yep.
I'm gonna go with this one.
Why is that?
Terry. Yeah, Terry.
Why is that, Parker?
I don't know. I feel like his curve is better, his top end. Like, you know, he has. If the game, he's going to force the game to go longer, and I think the longer it goes, the more it favors him.
Okay, that's a fair point.
I agree with that assessment, especially with he's got the burn for removal, and he's just focusing, like, whereas John's kind of like focusing on the synergy of these creatures working together. Terry's just strictly playing like each turn, you know, mana for turn, best creatures he could play on those turns, plus burn and mana drains.
I mean, well, yeah. Also, like, if we're considering game one, either a Chain Lightning is going to steal the Gosbins or just like get him ahead, or he can drop like a Taiga, Kurt Ape, and just be fucking ahead already, like
Right.
just with that.
That's a good point. Okay, so we then predict that Terry, for this match, for the first semifinals, it'll be John versus Terry. We think Terry will win. For Damien versus Peter. Now that's a tough one. Peter's deck with the plain nonsense deck versus Damien's deck. I mean, what do you guys think's what do you think's gonna emerge victorious from that one? I mean, this is gonna be the ultimate, like, Four Horsemen video ever. Two Living Planes decks playing each other.
I got the advantage pre-sideboard for sure.
Okay, yeah, I think that's right. The Sandstorms make your deck optimal pre-sideboarded.
Well, also, if you not even pre-sideboard but post-sideboard, like, how many cards are going to have to come out? Like,
well, yeah, that's right. That's right. But
yeah, no, like, he's go back. It's like all of the Brainwash and Gaseous and
yeah, all that shit. Yeah, so he's gonna have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, but he could. Man, he'd probably be worth saving those. But yeah, there's 8 cards that are coming out.
Yeah, Divine Offering's coming out.
8.
He's got more than that. He's got 14 cards coming out, maybe.
Flash Flood's coming out.
Yeah, so he can put in his whole sideboard except for the Greater Realms.
But he can't, because those are not also useful
Now,
cards. He doesn't have anything.
Yeah.
We didn't take it out. He's only got the counter, whatever the counter spell there, the flash counter.
We didn't talk about this key point in Damien's sideboard, but he's running fasting in his sideboard, which allows him to gain life if he skips his draw. He gets to draw. He gets to gain 2 life per turn. So it's an enchantment that can't. It can't. You know, instead of playing like Fountain of Youth or Ivory Tower, like it's an enchantment that can't be dealt with very easily. And then he can kind of skip his draw if he's in control and just gain life and get back up to a safe life level.
But Peter already said that like he doesn't give a shit about somebody's life total.
Yeah. I know, but we just didn't talk about. We forgot to talk about
we didn't talk
Damien's
about
sideboard altogether. He's got the two knowledge vaults and the greater realms and all that. But yeah, I mean, he doesn't have enough cards in his sideboard that are relevant against Peter to sideboard everything out and everything in. Like
Yeah.
four. He's got 12. He's got 12, and then the two flash floods. So he's got
the Island of Walk. I think he's at 16 cards he wants.
Oh yeah, he's got 14 plus 2 the islands. Yeah, he's got 16 cards. He could literally sideboard his entire deck, his entire sideboard in.
But Flash Flood again is
No,
not. There's too many dead cards, and I think the matchup favors. One, whoever gets like the Caracas Tabernacle.
Well, that's the other thing, right? That's the other thing. With the modern rules, everybody can have one of the legendary permanents. So if both of you guys have Caracas, then the Tabernacle won't affect anything this entire game.
Well, he'll bounce like the Tabernacle, and then I'll bounce his Caracas, or vice versa, and I'll bounce his Caracas. So then the Caracas can't work the next when they put it back in because it has summoning sickness.
Yeah.
So that's what's gonna happen. There's going to be a little Caracas war going down.
The Caracas. So
like someone's going to be like, it's the minute whoever's got the like, so it actually favors like it's like a negative feedback loop in a way, so it stabilizes because whoever does have the combo assembled, Tabernacle, Caracas, they go, okay, it's going to my turn. I would like to bounce my Tabernacle, and the person's like, great, I'm also bouncing your Caracas. Now you can't reestablish the combo. As long as they pay for their Caracas to do that, and they should, and I'm sure both of us would. So it's kind of like it neutralizes, and that's why I'm also really glad to have the Feldon's King, because I think this match with Damien, it's either going to be like absolutely someone just wins because they crush it with their combo, or it's going to go to like this dead stale heat where nobody can do anything.
Well, basically, it's going to come down to do you have Sandstorm or not?
Well, I also think the thing is he's not running Boomerang. I think Boomerang, I'm not going to pick favorites here, but my deck has other ways to make. He's using those two things to make his combo work, but I can also play Drop of Honey.
All right.
And then can Boomerang in the back of my hand where he doesn't have that card available to him.
All right. Yeah, that's a really good point. Okay, so we predict then the semifinals will be John versus Terry, and Terry will win. So Terry will go to the finals. This will be his second finals. And then we predict Damien and William. Damien will win, and Mike and Peter will win. And then Peter, you'll be playing Damien, and we predict Peter will win. So the final is going to be Terry versus Peter, and that'll
last month repeated. One more time.
Yeah.
Do last month.
Yeah. So it's going to be Living Plains versus the red-green aggro of Terry. So who do we think would win Terry versus Peter?
I mean, this is going to be an interesting matchup, but I have to say it's probably just going to be Peter. There's not enough burn. If he's able to mana drain at key points, that's going to be huge. Maybe the remove soul's got to come out. So I'm thinking like game 2... Ruck Egg is going to play into his favor with the Tabernacle because he can just like force himself to sack it.
Yeah.
That's about all that I would. Well, Scavenger Folk maybe just for like early beats. Same with the Pixies, even though like maybe it's like taking out the 6 drops and bringing in more like early curve.
Yeah.
But it'll probably be a little close. It's starting to look a lot more like my deck versus you, Peter, and I think that it's just like a little bit slower because he is trying to curve more than I am.
Yeah.
And at which point you just gain the advantage still.
When I look at his deck, I actually don't have anything I would probably change in my sideboard. Like that's how matched I am for that deck. Like I have 4 Divine Offerings for his robots. and I've got all the stuff to handle the creatures. It's hard to really think I would sideboard much against in this match. So it probably favors me the first one. I think it's a good matchup though because he's just very efficient with his creatures overall. He's got efficient creatures and he has mana drain as well, and that's like we keep talking about maybe restricting mana drain and stuff like that, but you can, if it happens again. I mean, how many times have the decks that make it to the finals the ones that run mana drain?
Yeah, we should do a review if we're gonna really get serious about evaluating restricting it. If we look at this will be our 11th tournament. We could look at all 11 and see how many of the top 8 decks had 4 mana drains and see where we're at. Okay, so but
if you focus that down to the top 4 decks, I bet it becomes even more like.
Yeah.
Peter, I think that you should bring in your extra boomerang.
Me too.
Yeah, just to like make sure that you live to turn 5.
Yeah, it's going to be important. It's going to really be important. And I guess if he brought in rook eggs, he did have them. I probably would bring in maybe Flash Flood, although I think Boomerangs actually does the same thing Flash Flood does, but
yeah,
it's more versatile, so I'll probably not bring.
I can see you just swamping the Felden's Cane for the Boomerang, and then you're just like,
oh yeah, yeah. That game's not going to go like that game. Someone's going to win it or lose it. It's not going to go.
Maybe the Whack Whack. I can see like bringing in Whack Whack and maybe taking out the like divine offerings.
One divine offering for sure. Yeah. It depends how. I don't know if I could predict that. I mean, because Terry, if he knew what I was playing, I would want to keep all 3 trikes in probably.
I don't know, just getting to turn 6, like 6 mana.
Yeah, I think Parker's onto it right here. It's going to be so hard for Terry to get to 6 mana. By the time he gets to 6 mana, it's going to be fucking game over. You know. He doesn't have Fellwar Stones. Hold on. He doesn't.
I lost a lot of games. No, I was just saying I lost a lot of games because I didn't have I either had the mana drain or I didn't have the mana drain. Or I had the living plane. I didn't have the living plane. That the pieces weren't really together, and so like a lot of times people just didn't get to their turn 6 and they just beat me because he did not have those key pieces together.
I think he'll struggle there because he doesn't have the Elves of Deep Shadow and he doesn't have Fellwar Stones. He is running 24 lands, but you know or whatever. But he doesn't have the mana ramp with the Fellwars and the elves. So I think that Parker's right. He really should side out his 6 drops for more speed. Okay, so guys, we're coming up on
not having enough creatures.
What was that, Peter?
I was gonna say like the more you side out your creatures, the more effective in a way also Drop of Honey becomes because you just have to deal with less creatures with it and Spirit Links. Like it's like, you know what's
I'm not saying side out his creatures. I'm saying just side out the top heavy ones.
Yes.
Or early beats.
Yeah.
I guess, but like see, my philosophy is like as well as like, you know, you only have so many, you have a certain amount of like when you focus, some decks really focus down doing like a lot of artifacts or they do a lot of creatures, they do a lot of spell, whatever they focus on. The attempt is that they'll run into whoever they run into doesn't have enough main deck resources to deal with that, and not even enough sideboards. They just overwhelm one resource unless someone has like the nuts for that.
I just start thinking of your creatures like shocks instead of like creatures at that point. Like they are disposable.
Yeah.
You're just trying to get in whatever damage they're worth before you're dead.
Before they die. Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. So that's all our predictions there then.
Yep. Congratulations, Peter.
No.
See you in 2 weeks.
See you in 2 weeks on the other side of that one.
All right, and I think that's a great way to wrap this video. Guys, thanks for joining, Peter, Parker. Appreciate it. And this was a lot of fun. We've never done this before. Hopefully folks will enjoy it and hopefully they'll watch it. And if they do, especially the players that are playing, they might get some really good insights.
I hope there's some good laughs. You know, we could be miles off on everything, so it could be quite funny, actually.
I hope so.
Yeah.
There's nothing better than being surprised.
Sure.
All right. Well, with that, we'll wrap it. Peter, Parker, thanks for joining me, guys. And this is the Four Horsemen signing off. Everybody have a great evening.
Good night, gents.
Good evening.
Cheers.